6 high school teams, hundreds of civics questions answered, and now we're down to the final 2 teams competing in Spokane's first ever televised Civics Quiz Bowl. Today, North Central and Lewis and Clark will face the hardest questions yet in their bid to be awarded the Civics Bowl championship title.
Civics Bowl is made possible by Eastern Washington University, the Avista Foundation, the League of Women Voters of the Spokane area and of Washington, and by viewers like you.
Hello and welcome to the final episode in our inaugural season of Civics Bowl. I'm your host, President and General Manager of KSPS, Gary Stokes. Here at KSPS, one of our top priorities is promoting civics education, not only in our schools, but for our entire community. We hope you've enjoyed brushing up on your government and politics knowledge while rooting for these impressive students. Let's take a look at the bracket. As we mentioned, we started with 6 teams from Spokane Public Schools. Today, it's down to the final 2. This is it, North Central versus Lewis and Clark for the championship trophy. Congratulations, teams, on making it to the championship. Let's meet the players from North Central.
Hi, I'm Bryce Anderson.
Hi, I'm Jonah Aiden.
I'm Sydney Bergman.
And I'm Jacob Gannon.
And now the team from Lewis and Clark.
Hi, I'm Vin Pham.
I'm Sasha Sharman.
Hi, I'm Arun Warren.
Hi, I'm Molly Weiser.
Let's get the gameplay started with the toss-up round. All players are eligible to buzz in and answer the toss-up question. After correctly answering a toss-up question, the winning team will receive a related bonus question. Teams, you're encouraged to collaborate only on the bonus questions. All correct answers in this round are worth 10 points. For all questions, you must wait until I've finished reading the question to buzz in. Ready, players? Let's begin. Which of the 13 original colonies was the last to sign the U.S. Constitution? Sydney.
Connecticut.
Incorrect. Arun.
Vermont.
Incorrect. Rhode Island. Rhode Island. Next toss-up question. Article 5 of the Constitution grants Congress power to propose an amendment to the Constitution if 2/3 of both houses deem it necessary. In what other process may a constitutional amendment be proposed? Sasha.
A constitutional convention.
That is correct. And here's your bonus. What must happen for a proposed amendment to the Constitution to be ratified?
3/4 of all states must ratify it.
Correct. Here's your toss-up. Constitutional rights can be classified into 2 types of rights that define what the government can or cannot do. What are these types called? Sasha.
Positive and negative rights.
That is correct. And here's your bonus. Negative rights expressly limit the power of government as laid out in the Constitution. What do positive rights require? We need an answer.
They add to the rights that are listed explicitly in the Constitution.
The government must do something. Do something. Here's a toss-up, both teams. According to Article 3, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution, which governmental body has the power to declare punishment for treason against the United States? Jonah.
The judicial branch.
Incorrect. Sasha.
Congress.
Correct. And you receive the bonus. Article 3, Section 3 also narrowly defines treason. Name 2 of 3 treasonous acts.
Espionage and insurrection.
Judges, I'm going to say no on that, and they agree. All right. Here's your next toss-up. It's a guest video. Is your first video question, please refer to the monitor.
Hi, I'm Jess Walter, best-selling author of the novel Beautiful Ruins and a Spokane native. Here is your question. Congress has a lesser-known power to hire these people to attack foreign enemies.
Sydney?
Mercenaries?
Incorrect. Sasha?
Foreign nations.
Also incorrect. Pirates. I know, right? Here's your next toss-up. Elections are held at all levels of government, but presidential elections differ from state and local elections. Who has the opportunity to cast a ballot in presidential elections? Jacob?
All citizens of the United States.
Can you expand on that? A bit more information?
No.
Okay. Sasha?
All citizens of the United States over the age of 18 with some exceptions for felons.
All registered voters in the country. All registered voters. Okay. We have another guest presenter, and here he is.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kevin Perch, a political science professor at Eastern Washington University. Here's your question. In practical terms, how did the 12th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution change the method for the election of the Vice President?
Jacob?
The Vice President would now run in a ticket with the President.
That is correct. And here's your bonus. Back to the professor.
Before the passage of the 12th Amendment, how was the Vice President chosen? Here's a hint. The method likely made for some awkward situations.
The runner-up in the presidential race was the vice president.
That is also correct. Here's your toss-up. In 1913, how did the 17th Amendment change the selection of U.S. senators? Ben?
They are now directly elected.
That is correct. Here's your bonus. Prior to this, how were senators selected?
They were selected. They're elected by the state legislature.
Correct. Toss-up, both teams. How is it that tribes are allowed to operate casinos on tribal land? Arun?
They form their own separate legal entities and are not bound by state law.
That is correct. Here's your bonus. Provide one reason why casinos are important to many tribes.
They are a source of economic revenue.
That is correct. Toss-up, both teams. County governments in Washington without a charter typically have 3 elected commissioners as prescribed in the Washington Constitution. What is one of the responsibilities of the county commissioners? Arun?
To direct the executive branch of the county and to pass laws.
That is correct. And here's your bonus. A change in state law passed in 2018 requires changes in the election of county commissioners in Spokane County. Name one of these changes.
They're permitted to elect the health board.
5 county commissioners will now be elected. Okay, here's the next toss-up question. In 1948, the Washington State Constitution was amended to allow counties and cities more control over the structure of their government. Local voters can write and adopt a mini-constitution for their county or city. What is this mini-constitution called? Sasha?
A charter.
More information, please. Excuse me?
A city charter. Town charter.
That'll work. Home rule charter. Okay, here's your bonus. Under a home rule charter, what can a county change about its structure?
It changes the number of county commissioners.
That is correct. Here's your next toss-up, both teams. In the 1880s, government jobs were filled by patronage. What was this system called? Jacob?
The spoils system.
Correct. Here's your bonus. After the 1881 assassination of President Garfield by someone angry about not getting a government job, what act was signed into law stopping patronage at the federal level?
The Spoils Act.
The Pendleton Act. Pendleton Act. Okay, here's your last question in this round. For purposes of representation, the practice of counting every 5 slaves as 3 people was known as what? Molly?
The 3/5 compromise.
That is correct. And here is your bonus. Which two amendments to the Constitution revised the Three-Fifths Compromise by abolishing slavery and requiring that representatives be based on the whole number of people in each state?
The 13th and the 14th Amendments.
That is correct, and we are done with this round. Well done, teams, well done. All right, so as always, we'd like to take a moment to get to know our players a little bit better. So we'll start with North Central. Since it's our last time chatting, we'd like to know about your plans after graduation. Bryce.
I plan on going to the University of Washington and eventually becoming an educator.
Jonah.
I'm headed to Columbia University to study computer science and political science.
Sydney.
I plan to study anthropology at Western Washington University.
Jacob.
And like Bryce, I also plan on attending the University of Washington to study biological research.
Excellent. Vin.
I intend on going to the University of Washington for bioengineering.
Sasha.
I plan on debating for Western Washington University, where I will study psychology.
Arun.
I'd like to go to either UW or Georgetown, where I will study international relations or data science.
And Molly.
I plan on attending a four-year college or university.
Thank you. Teams, thank you. It's been a pleasure getting to know all of you over these past 6 weeks. Folks at home, stay with us. The all-important head-to-head round is up next.
Here's the answer to last week's question. Who was the first woman to lie in honor at the U.S. Capitol? The correct answer is D, Rosa Parks. After the civil rights leader died at age 92 in 2005, she received a final tribute when her body was brought to the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol. More than 30,000 people paid their respects. To lie in honor is reserved for private citizens. Following her death in 2020, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg became the first woman to lie in state, which is reserved for government officials and military officers.
As you can see, we're in position at the head-to-head set. Let's get a quick check on the scoring before we begin. Our judges have made a correction, allowing 10 points to North Central for a question that had been ruled as incorrect, but on review, the answer was correct, and so the score is now North Central 40, Lewis and Clark 130. In this round, each team member will go up against a member of the opposing team. Questions are worth 10 points, and again, you must wait for me to finish reading the question to buzz in. Everybody ready? Let's begin. You are a woman living in Washington State in 1912. Can you vote?
No.
Yes, you can. Next, elected members of the legislative branch are protected from criminal or civil liability while performing official duties with exceptions. Name the 3 exceptions.
Treason, breaking your oath of office, and felony.
Judges? Treason, felony, breach of the peace. In 1971, the 26th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution granted the right to vote in federal and state elections to which citizens?
Native Americans.
Incorrect. Citizens 18 years of age or older. The 27th Amendment to the Constitution, ratified 200 years after it was proposed, specified what?
It basically made it so Congress couldn't increase their salary for the same term that they're in office.
That is correct. Political socialization is how a person's positions on different issues are developed. Name 2 agents that shape one's political socialization.
Family and religion.
That is correct. Electioneering occurs when interest groups do what through political action groups?
Campaigning and platforming?
Yes, that is correct. The lengthy and often confusing system for bill passage in the United States can be frustrating. However, Congress and the government as a whole were designed to make it difficult. Why?
To ensure compromise.
Incorrect. To prevent authoritarian laws. What distinction does Charles Z. Smith hold in Washington State's judicial system?
Judge.
Be more...
Chief Justice.
No, first African-American state Supreme Court justice. And that is our round. Thank you, everyone. All right, teams, head back to home base and we'll get ready for our next round, the category round. Big news for future voters in Washington state. We all know the legal age to vote is 18. However, a new law passed in Washington state will, for the first time, allow 17-year-olds to vote in the August primary, as long as they'll turn 18 before the November general election. High school seniors, that means if you're 18 or will turn 18 before November 8th, it's time to register to vote. Only registered voters receive a ballot. Primaries are critical to selecting the two choices for each race in the general election. However, too often, primaries draw few voters.
Happy birthday to you.
Okay, teams, I know you're anxious to get back to the game, so let's take a quick score check. North Central 70, Lewis and Clark 130. And now it's time for the all-important category round. You have 6 categories from which to choose, each with 5 questions, which increase in point value from 10 to 30. And here are your categories: congressional leadership, next in line, notes of protest, political philosophers, the states, and give me your tired. The teams will alternate turns. You can skip around to different categories. However, you cannot jump ahead in point value. Points are deducted for wrong answers in this round, but you can pass on a question with no penalty or toss a question to the other team. If you're tossed a question, you must answer and will either win or lose the associated points. This is where some strategy comes into play. The team with the low score, you get to pick first, and that's North Central. Pick a category for us.
The states for 10 points.
The states for 10. Under the U.S. federal system of government, name 2 powers that are reserved for the states.
Education and the police force, or safety of citizens.
Correct.
Political philosophers for 10.
Political philosophers for 10 points. Here again is Eastern Washington professor Kevin Perch.
Written by Aristotle, what is the name of the collection of essays that was one of the first to address the study of political science?
Pass.
Okay, and we passed that, and now we move back over to North Central.
Next in line for 10.
Next in line for 10. Which president was assassinated in Dallas, Texas in 1963?
JFK.
That is correct. Elsie?
Congressional leadership for 10, please.
Congressional leadership for 10. The Speaker of the House is elected by the members of the majority party in the U.S. House. How often does this happen?
Every 2 years.
That is correct. North Central.
Give me your tired for 10 points.
Give me your tired for 10. According to the U.S. Constitution, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Defines what?
Pass.
Okay, citizenship was the answer. All right.
Congress leadership for 15.
Congress leadership for 15. In a similar fashion, the Senate Majority Leader is elected by the members of the majority party in the Senate. However, senators serve longer terms than representatives. How often are Senate Majority Leaders chosen?
Every 2 years.
That is correct.
Congressional leadership for 20.
Congressional leadership for 20. Who serves as the spokesperson for the minority parties in the House and Senate?
The minority leader.
That is correct. Arun?
Congressional leadership for 25, please.
25 it is. Because the U.S. House is so large, it has an additional layer of leadership. Whose primary job is it to make sure party members vote along with the party?
The party whips.
That is correct.
Congressional leadership 30.
And we're wrapping up this category. What is the primary way that leaders in both the House and Senate exercise their power? Need an answer.
Toss.
Okay, tossing it over.
by voting on bills and proposed policy decisions.
Committee assignments. Committee assignments.
That's what we had as our answer too. So.
LC.
Next in line for 15, please.
Who became president following President Kennedy's assassination?
Lyndon B. Johnson.
That is correct. NC.
For 20.
Next in line for 20. The succession plan to the president occurs upon the death or disability of the president. Name the first 4 executive offices in the succession plan in order.
Okay. Vice President, and then the Speaker of the House, and then the President pro tempore, and then the Secretary of the State.
That is correct. Well done.
Next in line, 25.
Next in line for 25. Name the people who now hold the first 4 offices in line of succession.
Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, Patrick Leahy, and Antony Blinken.
Correct again. Very nicely done, both teams.
For 30.
And we're wrapping up this category. Name the next 4 executive offices, not persons, in the succession plan in order.
Toss, please.
What is it? What is it?
Need an answer.
Secretary of Defense, Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of Commerce, Secretary of
Treasury, Defense, Attorney General, Secretary of the Interior, in order. And that wraps up that category round. We're going to take a little bit of a break, get us set on the scores, and then we will play the lightning round to decide who wins it all. Coming up next. Okay, we've put 90 seconds on the clock, and that means it's time for the lightning round. Let's get one last scoring update. North Central 130, Lewis and Clark 160. This is a tight match, and we'll find out how it turns out in 1.5 minutes or so. Teams, this is your chance to run up the score by answering as many questions as you can in 1.5 minutes. Each correct answer is worth 20 points. Points will be deducted for wrong answers. Teams, are you ready? Here we go. Number 1. Seen here, which former Spokane mayor was recently tapped as the U.S. Army civilian ambassador representing Eastern Washington? Arun.
David Condon.
Correct. Pictured here, name the U.S. representative for Eastern Washington.
Kathy McMorris Rogers.
Wrong team. Oh, that's okay. It's okay. It's all right. We'll keep going. First Amendment states Congress shall make no law prohibiting the free exercise of religion. Is this an example of a negative right or a positive right? Arun?
A positive right?
Negative right. Buying and selling property, entering into contracts, or joining labor unions are examples of what type of rights protected in the U.S. Constitution? Jacob?
Assembly.
Economic rights. Which elected county official is the chief law enforcement officer in the county? Arun?
The head of the Sheriff's Department.
Correct. In 1973, a Washington state initiative resulted in the creation of a commission focused on helping the public know where politicians and lobbyists get their money and how they spend it. What is this commission called? Public Disclosure Commission. Pictured here, who is Washington State's current lieutenant governor? Arun.
Denny Heck.
Correct. True or false, the U.S. Senate currently approves Supreme Court nominees by a simple majority of 50 votes plus 1. Jonah.
True.
That is correct. Which cabinet department ensures public safety against all? And that's the end of the game. Well done, everyone. After 6 weeks of battling back and forth, we now have a winner in the inaugural Civics Bowl. And with a score of North Central 130 and Lewis and Clark 200, Lewis and Clark, you are Spokane's first ever Civics Bowl champions. Arun, congratulations.
Thank you.
This is your trophy now. Take good care of it and take it back home to where it belongs. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, ladies, congratulations for being part of our competition, and more importantly, for being great representatives of your school and of your community. Congratulations to each and every one of you. From all of us here at KSPS Public Television and all of our partners, thank you so much for joining us for this fun and educational first season of Civics Bowl. See you next year.
Civics Bowl is made possible by Eastern Washington University, the Avista Foundation, the League of Women Voters of the Spokane area and of Washington, and by viewers like you. If you are a regional school interested in taking part in Civics Bowl next year, we want to know. Go to ksps.org/civicsbowl to fill out our online contact form.